We're barely bowl eligible, and we're in person for the first time ever. Join us as we give you the best players that you need to know and the best matchups you need to know heading into Week 7 of the college football slate coming up next.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
I'm Tucker Franklin, hanging out with Matthew Lane. We are in person at the KCSN studio for the first time ever as a live edition of Barely Bowl Eligible on the Always Draft Season channel presented by KCSN. Matthew, how are you doing?
Listen, I'm doing great. The Chiefs win. We're getting ready to talk about some college football. It's a fun weekend of college football. So, I'm ready. And I love doing this in person. I like getting to see your face, not have to look through a computer screen. I can reach over and rub your shoulders anytime I want. This is exactly what we need, I think, for Barely Bowl Eligible. This is what we've been missing so far.
This is the missing element. And if you're watching live, appreciate you watching live. If you listen after the fact, appreciate you doing that as well. We appreciate everybody who supports the draft content that we do here. This is just getting started. The draft content, obviously, on this YouTube channel. We will have a lot of draft content. This is where all our draft content will live. I'm sure you'll see a lot of Maddie. You'll see a lot of other people that we got to Ken Swanson, Craig Stout. Maybe some Craig Stout.
Maybe some Craig Stout. How about that? Listen, the Chiefs are off for the next 10 days. I got some time. We might get really deep into some of this draft content here coming up this week. It's kind of time for that.
Might have to get some film rooms up on the channel.
Oh boy.
That could be fun.
Oh boy.
That could be a fun thing to do. But we are here to talk about Week 7. Good slate. Good late slate, we should say.
Yeah.
Afternoon slate a little bit light, but if you don't know what we do here, we're going to give you a watch schedule. We're going to break everything down for
Saturday.
You. The whole Saturday. But Maddie, let's start with your one big thing for this past week in college football. We didn't really we don't have anything written down on the notes, but what were your kind of general takeaways from Week 6?
We got some dog rankings to update next week. I got to get back to the whiteboard. We got to go through, but we got some movement. I mean, listen, let's call it what it is. Luther Burden's got to move up in the dog rankings.
Oh yeah.
And Jaden Daniels got to go on there. I don't know how good he is as a quarterback, but if the dog ranking was designed for him, this man takes more shots than anybody in college football and just keeps getting back up. He is the living embodiment of that old Dwayne Wade commercial where you keep getting knocked down and you just have to get back up more times. That is him. So we got to update the dog rankings. Mm-hmm. I think that's my biggest takeaway right now. We're also probably a week away from starting to talk a little bit of Heisman favorites. We're getting close to that.
What are your thoughts too? I just thought about this. Is we haven't had this conversation.
Okay.
Talking about Heisman, bring up Jaden Daniels. Got to see a firsthand of how he played on a hurt rib. Came back in, was a real dog in that game. But some people are talking to Heisman for him. What are your thoughts on that? 2
losses is tough, but I think he has a chance, right? I think he still has a chance because they're putting up a lot of points. They lost their second game, the game against Ole Miss, based on the defense. Nothing he did. He was phenomenal in that game. So if they win out, that'll include wins over Bama, some other good SEC wins, and especially if they go and play, if they win the SEC altogether, they beat Georgia in the championship game, presumably, or even if they lose but a close game and he plays well, 3 losses is tough. But we've seen Robert Griffin do it, right? We've seen Lamar Jackson. I think he lost 2 games, I believe, at Louisville the year that he won it.
Yeah.
So he can win it, and his stats are backing it up. His play, he's got Heisman moments now. I mean, it's Missouri. I don't mean that in a slight. It's not like it was the biggest game, but he has Heisman moments from that. So I think he's in the running. I wouldn't say he's the favorite, but he's definitely in the running right now. And I think the 2 losses haven't completely removed him yet.
Has a shot to have a Heisman type moment. I don't know if you could say. I mean, pretty decent Heisman moment against Missouri.
No, it's there. It's definitely that'll be on the reel, right? That'll definitely be on the reel. I just don't know when we talk Heisman moment. Again, this isn't a slight. I just don't know if against Missouri
it's going to move the needle.
Exactly.
I understand. I get it. But Alabama coming up still on their schedule. Could have an opportunity to get that there. Looking at LSU's schedule, they have Auburn, Army, Alabama, Florida, Georgia State, Texas A&M. So not an incredibly tough schedule for LSU, but Alabama's probably the toughest game they have left. But you never know what Texas A&M is going to be. Florida seems to be a mixed bag this year.
Yeah, so big games against either of those 3 teams, Bama, Texas A&M, or Florida. You get if you get a Heisman moment in one of those, and then you also still have the SEC championship, he's got a case. He's really going to have a case. The stats are ridiculous right now. So I just launched up to Malik Neighbors and over and over again, just let it roll.
That's going to work, isn't it? Holy cow, that guy's good. Let's get into our watch schedule here. I put all times in Central, Maddie. Or I don't know if you noticed that because we're both in the Central time zone.
We don't just heck with the East Coast.
East Coast doesn't get it this week.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, East Coast, 11 a.m. So we mentioned at the beginning, at the top of the show, not an enticing schedule when it comes to the noon games.
Yeah.
There are some Big Ten games going on if you're into the Big Ten football. We are not. Michigan is playing like Rutgers, right? Or
No, Michigan plays Indiana, I think.
same thing. I think I'm pretty much the same team.
Ohio State plays in like it's all your blue blood Big Ten programs that should be good. I think Penn
Playing-
State might be off, or they might. I can't remember they play, but they're all playing an in-conference game against somebody that they should roll over, right?
Yes.
So like that's why the noon slate a little light this week.
That's why we are going with Georgia Southern at James Madison.
Let's go, the Dukes.
The Dukes have been the team of the past couple of years, really.
Yeah,
Winning.
we're riding the Dukes.
We are very high on the Dukes, moving up to the FBS from FCS. But they have that 2-year postseason ban.
I mean, listen, they're not bowl eligible. They are not bowl eligible.
They're not. It's not necessarily a ban just because it's like a probation period, I think is what they call it.
So silly.
But it seems odd that this team has come in and they won last year.
What's
They
the
won a
point? What's the
conference.
point of this? Like, if this was like a trial period and then there was no penalty and they could just drop back down because they
Right.
couldn't hang, okay, I would understand. But what's the point? They've moved up. Why can't they win their conference? Like, why are they not allowed to win the conference that they're playing in? Why is they just not allowed? They
Just
say, no.
waive it. Yeah, just waive the probation. Like, okay, you're good enough to compete.
What are we doing?
And they came a year after they won the FCS national championship.
Yeah, and
too.
it's not like that was rare. They're good.
Right,
They've been
yeah.
good at that level for a long time. So yeah, it's just very strange, but they're a fun team to watch. I
Very
think
fun
every
team.
week Tucker and I find a different like social clip of one of their coaches. One week they were using a replay on their phone and trying to show a referee like what happened on the replay of their phone. The ref wasn't having it.
No.
Another week I forget what they did, but like a strength coach or something was doing something crazy. Like they have a lot of fun. They have a lot of fun there.
And that team is a lot of fun in general. We talked about some of the like their defensive line. Quarterback is a guy you brought up too. Young guys. They got a young team, young fun team. But Georgia Southern also should not be counted out because they've been pretty salty this year as well. This is at James Madison in Harrisonburg, Virginia. This will be on ESPN2 at 11 a.m. kickoff time. Very interesting game. Like, because I think this is a good test in terms of James Madison, Georgia Southern. If you guys are familiar with, I guess this would be Group of 5 football.
Yeah.
But I know that a lot of people aren't familiar with it, but this is going to be a good football game and a good matchup between two just good teams.
Clay Helton got a lot of flack at USC, and he should have.
Yeah.
But he's pulled Georgia Southern out of the triple option and just kind of being a nothing there and like making them matter. And so they're 4-1. They're coming in. They've been playing really good ball this year. They're going to James Madison's been winning the past 2 years, but they're not blowing everybody out. So this really should be a good, fun, not Power 5 game if you're looking to get into it a little bit, right? Like if you're looking to get into the Group of 5, this will be a fun game to watch. I don't know how many draft prospects there necessarily will be, but I do think James Madison has some defensive linemen worth keeping your eye on. Jalen Green, and then Jamori Chroma. They kind of play D tackle hybrids, a little bit of outside. Like they kind of move all around, but both those guys are getting after the quarterback.
Right.
They're playing a lot of fun football. Hopefully this game gets like the rub it should. A lot of times when you tune in to watch James Madison, you kind of get a pretty wonky broadcast because they're a Group of 5 team. But actually, this is on ESPN too.
Yeah.
So they should be pretty good. Like you should actually get a see and be able to tell what's going on in a good football game. It's like you got nothing going on at 11 a.m. This slate isn't that great unless you're watching, a beatdown of the Big Ten. Throw this game on. Watch some of the James Madison Dukes. Watch Clay Helton try to rebound his coaching career for Georgia Southern. It should be a good one.
Yeah. Also, our friends at Home Field Apparel have some great Georgia Southern gear. I don't know if you've seen it. They got a GATA, get after their asses shirt with Georgia Southern on it.
Last week I had the Duke shirt on too.
It's true. Yeah, the Dukes. We're big Sunbelt fans.
Fun Belt.
Looking at the spread of this game, Maddie, the Dukes are favored by 6 points at home.
Yeah.
They are 3-2 this year against the spread. Georgia Southern 5-0 this year against the spread. So thoughts on this game before we do our pick?
Listen, James Madison's coming off a week off. I don't know if Georgia Southern played last week. They might be coming off a week off too. But give me the Dukes. Give me our Dukes. I'm riding with the Dukes. We're laying the points. We're at home. I think James Madison's just that team, right? Like every now and then you just have one of these kind of Group of 5 teams that comes into a conference and they kind of run it for a while. App State had their run.
Yep.
Coastal Carolina had their run. UTSA. Like you get these teams that get in the conference and they just like have the right coach, the right recruiting. They're in the right area and they just kind of get it going. I think it's the time of James Madison. They need to keep riding this hype too, because they got to get past again this bowl ban or ineligibility period, whatever it's going to be, to keep it rolling. So I'm going to ride with the Dukes in this one. We're laying the points.
I'm gonna have a hard time betting against the Dukes, truthfully, because I really like them. I just like their image and branding and everything like that.
Yeah.
It's super cool. But this from our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. Georgia Southern has covered the spread in 4 of its last 5 games. So another little nugget, but I'm rolling with the Dukes.
Let's go.
I like the Dukes too much to not roll with them. But let's get into game 2. We're gonna get back into the Power 5. The Huskies.
The Huskies.
The Huskies are hosting the number 8 Oregon Ducks. Number 7 versus number 8 in the AP poll. This is obviously take place in Seattle, Washington. Beautiful stadium, by the way.
Probably the best.
It's like right on
the water.
The water.
People watch from boats.
It's actually incredible. That's that's like the bucket list stadium, right? You know, it's like a stadium you want to go watch a game at. Probably I'd want to watch a Washington Oregon game there.
I would, except for Oregon's not wear the eggshell uniforms for this game. I don't dislike the uniforms. This is your biggest rival. Like, right? I don't want an alternate uniform. Give me some greens and yellows versus the purple and the gold. That's what I want to see for this game.
They should have was it last week they wore like the throwback Donald Duck uniforms?
2 weeks ago, yeah.
2 weeks ago? They should have worn those.
I agree.
This game.
Yeah, they just got to get the colors. You got to get the colors go. This is a great game. You know what some are calling this? The battle for the Big Ten.
Some were calling it the battle for the Big Ten, as I had said that when we were prepping for the show. I think Washington should be ranked higher than what they are.
I think the Arizona game put a little bit of a bad taste in people's mouth because it was close.
Fair.
But if you watch, Arizona gave USC some issues too. So maybe Arizona's not as bad as like everybody was pretending. And two, if you watch it, Arizona just played scared. They played like a quarter shell and they just had safeties playing 30 yards deep and just said, hey, check it down. We're not really trying to stop you. We just want you to drive the ball for 7 minutes to score. And like, Washington did, right? So, like, I just think that game put a bad taste in people's mouth. You want to tell me that Kalen DeBoer and that Huskies team were preparing for Oregon and not really caring about Arizona? Yeah. I'm in. And Oregon probably did the same. I don't want to, Oregon, both teams are coming off an off week. I think we're going to get a banger of a game, right? Like, you have 2 teams fully prepared for one another here. So, it should be a great one. Oregon's been really good. Oregon's probably a more complete team than Washington is right now.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, they have a little bit better defense.
Right.
I don't even know if they've been. Yeah, I don't even know if they've been challenged more. I don't think that's fair to say either team. We all like the story of Colorado, but it's not like Colorado's an upper echelon team. Are they really any better than a Boise, than a Michigan State? Right. So like their teams are about the same. So it'll be fun. I think it's kind of about whichever offensive line plays better. I think both of them have good but not great defensive lines. The coverage unit for Oregon's probably a little bit better, but then the weapons for Washington are definitely better. So like I just think whatever offensive line plays a little bit better, can Washington handle the physicality of Oregon? Like that's the question for me. You
mentioned like the defense of Oregon too. I think that's what I was most impressed when we talk about the game that they had against Colorado. I think that's what really stood out to me was their defenses. And Bo Nix gets a lot of deserved credit, I think, for on that Oregon team. I think he's kind of revitalized his career over there. You just need to go to the Pac-12, I guess, is all he needed to do. There's been a lot of quarterbacks go to the Pac-12 and have a revitalization out there. It's been a quarterback conference as of late, but I do think that their defense is really surprising to me. I'm going to be curious how they play against some of these absolute studs that Washington has at wide receiver. You talk about Rome Odunze. You talk about, I'm blanking on who the other guy is.
McMillan and Polk.
Yeah. McMillan and Polk. Like those guys are legit dudes. Are they going to have enough horses back there to cover those guys? That's going to be the big thing. Well,
and this is where it gets real confusing. It's Jalen McMillan and Jalen Polk. It's like this is 2 Jalen. So here's the thing. I agree. I think McMillan's been hurt. He missed the Arizona game or was limited. I think he'll be back for this one, which is big for the Huskies. Yeah. And then Oregon, they lost a couple guys in the secondary. So I don't know how well they're going to hold up. They look good versus Colorado, but Colorado was missing their best receiver. Like they have weapons, but like Travis Hunter gave them an element that nobody else was in that game.
Correct.
Rome Odunze, Jalen McMillan, those 2 guys will take the top off no matter what. Like you're going to have to defend the whole field against the Huskies. Now, Evan Williams is a safety. He's a transfer in from Fresno State for Oregon. He's been playing exceptionally well. So like I think he's going to have a lot on his plate to stop some posts, some corner routes that Washington's going to throw at them. Now, I think this is a game, though. I think Rome Odunze kind of takes this game over. I think this is just one of those games where you need big-time players to step up. We saw it last week when Missouri and LSU played. Malik Neighbors and Luther Burden, especially early on, are kind of trading punches as wide receivers taking the game over. Your quarterback has to get them the ball, but studs show up and make big plays. I think if Odunze really wants to press that, a real hard agenda for wide receiver too, this is a game where he just takes over, and I think he can. I'm looking at the schedule for Oregon. And we talked. You brought this up, and I said, I want to go back and look and see who they've played. Texas Tech is really the only team they've played. They obviously hung a 81 burger on Portland State. They beat Texas Tech
close. Like, that was a close game. I think Texas Tech might be better than a lot of people think, though. I think that might play into it a little bit. Crushed Hawaii, crushed Colorado. Both not very good. Like, Colorado without their best weapon.
Right.
So like that's something to attribute to that. Colorado also doesn't have a defense, essentially.
And that's it too. Oregon's defensive line has just ran over everybody they've played besides Texas Tech. And that was the one game that was close. And then, their last 2 drives of that, the defensive line for Oregon showed up, and that kind of was what ended the game. It got the pick 6, it got a stop, but the defensive line was kind of controlled for Texas Tech. I don't think a single player for Texas Tech's offensive line starts on Washington.
No.
Washington's offensive line is really good. Those tackles, Troy Fatano and Roger Rosengarten, 2 really good players. They're both going to play in the NFL. Yeah. Maybe tackle, maybe guards, but they're going to play. So I think Washington's offensive line in general is – Oregon's offensive line is good too, right? So, it's whatever defense shows up. But I think there are some warning signs for Oregon that if their defensive line can't just run through Washington's pass protection, Adunze, McMillan, Polk, they might put some points up. And listen, I'm a skeptic. I don't know if I believe Bo Nix yet or not. There's only so many times I can watch you throw a 1-yard pass and then hit a bomb to wide open Troy Franklin and not be like, okay, you're better. You're better than you were. But can you do it when someone's not wide open and you got to actually throw the ball?
It looks like our friends at DraftKings anticipate this to be a very high scoring game.
Woo!
The total is 67, but I'm looking at the anytime touchdown scores, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players in minus money. Ooh. So Rome Odunze, Jalen McMillan, Dylan Johnson, Troy Franklin, Bucky Irving.
Big Bucky. We haven't talked about him yet. He's still on the dog watch.
We haven't talked about Bucky yet. And Jalen Polk also all in minus money for anytime touchdown scores. So they like a lot of points in this game, obviously. Washington, 3 points, getting 3 points at home. Minus 3 points, I should say, in favor of them. So that makes you think that neutral site, this is a straight up pick 'em.
I agree.
And I think this is going to be a really good game.
7 versus 8.
Really do. Obviously, 7 versus 8. That plays a lot into it. Let me give you a stat before you make it
perfect.
Washington has failed to cover the spread in 10 of its last 11 October games as a favorite.
Okay.
So as a favorite, they have not covered in many October games. Oregon 5-0 against the spread. Washington 3-2 against the spread this year. Maddie, what are you picking in this game?
This is tough. Washington's a team that I've liked the past couple of years. Been very open about it. I think they're a lot of fun. I love the offense. We've got the Washington shirt. We got the Dubs up. Let's go. Yep. So we're going to take Washington. I just trust the quarterback more. I think they have the best non-quarterback as well in Rome Odunze. I think the offensive line is a little bit better. I'm going to take Washington, but I think it's also a little bit mental. I think Kalen DeBoer is there, and this is the game they have to win. This is their big rivalry, and this is a game that the Washington hasn't really been able to, since Mario got to Oregon, Oregon just kind of pushes Washington around. They kind of bully them. And Dan Lanning, I love as a coach too.
Oh, yeah.
He might be able to do it too. He might be able to push around Washington, but I just think this is the game they have to have. This is the year they're about to lose Michael Penix, who's kind of got them back on the map. They're getting ready to make this Big Ten change. I think if there is a game to show Washington can handle physicality, it's this one. You're coming off a week off. I'm going to take the Huskies in this one, but I do think it's going to be a close game.
It's going to be really close. I'm going to take Oregon in this one, not because I think Oregon's going to win, because I think this is like a 1-point game.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why. I think Washington still wins. This game to me, and I told you this last night, this game feels to me that this is a game that Oregon loses. It feels like a game that this is a game that just Oregon drops. They don't feel up to it. I don't know if last question before we take a break and then move on to the other games that we got here. Loser of this game, does it say more about the loser or the winner, do you think?
The winner. Unless something gets blown out. No, I won't take anything too negative actually from either team here. They're the 2 very good teams. I think both these teams honestly can be competing for the play. Even with a loss, one of these teams can still make the playoff because if they win out, they'll still play one another again in the championship game, most likely if they win out, because they all play each other in the Pac-12. They win again there. It's I think whoever loses this game still has a chance. I'm not going to look too poorly on either one for losing. I will say, though, it'll be a tough pill to swallow if Washington just gets bullied, right? If they just get bullied, it'll be okay, it's the same Washington team that we've been seeing. They're not physically ready for that yet. But anything else besides just getting pushed around, it's just all about who can pull this game off and win.
There it is. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. We're going to get into our we got a Sickos game, we got a wild card game, and we also got the evening night slate game, which is a loaded night slate, by the way. Loaded night slate coming up right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Let's get right back into it, Maddie, as we are going to the night slate game, 6 p.m. kickoff, as number 25 Miami travels to number 12 North Carolina.
Woo!
This will be in Chapel Hill, obviously, on ABC. Listen, you can just leave your TV on from the Oregon and Washington game. It's going to go right into our game to Miami, North Carolina. This is an interesting game. Miami is a team that is interesting. I want to give a hat tip to our friends at the Sickos committee, by the way, because early on I was reading some of their preview content of just like teams that have the potential to be sicko. They immediately said this Miami team is a sicko team. Like at the beginning of the year, they're like, this team is going to be sicko.
Miami plus Mario. That's
and we can talk about what they did last week.
No, I'm not talking about that.
That's fine.
No chance.
We don't have to. You know what happened last week, obviously. Them not kneeling the clock out. Very weird. Then losing to Georgia Tech. I don't know if you saw this, Maddie, that Miami had beaten Miami of Ohio, who had beaten Georgia Tech, who had also beaten Miami.
No, I think Miami of Ohio beat Bowling Green, who blew out Georgia Tech.
Yes.
Who beat Miami. So Miami of Ohio got revenge against Miami.
College football. There you go. I'm glad that you were able to pull that because not firing all cylinders. But here, let's go. Miami, North Carolina. What do you think about this game? It seems like a game that Miami would weirdly get up for.
Oh, I'm sure they'll be up for it, especially after last week. They get a lot of criticism all week, right? Now, here's the thing. If I wasn't, in Kansas City right now, I'd probably go to this game. This would be a fun game to drive right down the street to. It's one of the ones I had circled to potentially go to. This is gonna be a fun game, right? You get Drake May going up against a Miami defense. It's really, really good. And Miami's going to be a little motivated coming off of this because, they whatever happened last week, they still have, I don't want to say playoff hopes. I don't know if you can lose to Georgia Tech and have playoff hopes, but they still have ACC championship hopes. And losing another game right here would be difficult. But you're still going to be motivated. And North Carolina, I got a nugget for you coming in early, has won the last 4 meetings against Miami. Mac Brown's on a 4-game win streak against the Canes right now. So they're slinging it. It wouldn't be fair if we also didn't bring this up. Tez Walker was reinstated last week for North Carolina. He was a little sick during the game, I believe. So he didn't have a huge game last week, but he is back. So North Carolina now has wide receiver 1 and then Nate McCollum, wide receiver 2, fully healthy and back. That might matter in this game as it goes on.
Absolutely. And I love how the NCAA reinstated him and said, we wanted to do this the whole time, even though they were the ones that said that he couldn't play. They're trying to make North Carolina the bad guys.
You didn't send us the right information. North Carolina's we didn't send anything new.
Just a very bizarre situation. NCAA continuing to do baffling things. What's new? That seems to be a very consistent thing. But you mentioned the Miami defense, very good. Obviously, Drake May. I don't know if Drake May's had quite the year that we anticipated.
It was great last week, though.
It was very good last week. Yes. Hopefully, continue that momentum against an ACC opponent in Miami. I need to look up the ACC standings real quick to see how that's all going. But
and you mentioned that. I mean, that's the big matchup, right? Drake May versus Miami team that has probably as much NFL talent as anyone he's going to face this year, right? They got Leonard Taylor, one of the best interior pass rushers coming up the middle. And then on the back end, you have both their safeties, Cameron Kitchens and then James Williams are both probably going to play in the NFL. And so you have Drake May, who's fighting to be, I think he's still in QB1 conversation. Don't get the sheets pulled over your eyes with Caleb Williams highlights. Got to
that is true.
Caleb Williams hasn't completed a touchdown pass left-handed yet. Drake May has. That's number one. Number two, I think Drake May is just better in structure than Caleb Williams is right now. Not that he's got this high ceiling or quite as much physical tools, but he's still got plenty. Just don't sleep on Drake May. So I think this is a big game for him. He's coming off arguably his best game in all of college football last week against Syracuse. Yeah. Can he build on that now that team is healthy? And then, like I said, the Miami defense has got a lot of guys vying to go to the NFL. So it's not like it's a walk in the park like last week may have been. So that's the big matchup there.
I was looking at the ACC standings right now. Louisville leads the way 3-0 behind Florida State. I guess they're technically tied.
Yeah.
UNC's only played 2 conference games, so they're 2-0 with Duke at 1-0 behind them. So all the teams that haven't had a loss. Georgia Tech obviously having 1 loss in there, but then that's behind them because they're 2-1. So it looks like it's going to be probably Florida State and UNC when you talk about the ACC when it comes. They played a championship game, right? Or did they get rid of that?
I think they still got it.
I think they do too because they got rid of the divisions, but they still play the championship game, a Florida UNC game. That would bang. That would go very hard.
I mean, you can't rule out Louisville right now either, though. I mean,
it's true.
They have a weak schedule. I mean, the ACC is getting interesting. It's getting interesting here down the stretch.
It really will. So looking at this game, it looks like that the Tar Heels are favored by 3 points at home. Maddie, does that line surprise you?
It did. It surprised me a lot. I'm going to be sad. I'm very surprised that the Tar Heels weren't getting a little bit more rub here. I guess maybe the way the Vegas lines work, they're not going to weigh in that Mario forgot to kneel the ball. They're going to see that Miami was going to win this game, right? Like they see Miami, outgained. They were better than Georgia Tech. They just had some execution errors and some unluckiness. Like they're not going to put that in there, but still, like I feel like Miami's getting a lot of weight from just chucking the ball downfield against Texas A&M, which they should get credit for. But we just saw Alabama do the same thing. And like nobody thinks Alabama's got the best quarterback wide receiver tandem in all of college football, but you just watch Texas A&M, you would. So the line did surprise me. Hey, listen, Gene Chizik has this North Carolina defense playing not terribly right now, right? Like they're no longer just a sieve on that side of the ball. They have the best or second best quarterback in all of college football. They're getting weapons back. It's at home. Mac Brown's he's a better coach than Mario Cristobal during a game. Not great. Mac still makes plenty of questionable decisions, but he's a better in-game coach than Mario. So like, it's just that line took me by surprise.
We saw a lot of questionable coaching decisions on last Saturday in the college football ranks.
Come on, Arizona.
But like
Redfish.
There's a lot of questionable ones. But looking at some kind of nuggets before we pick this game, Miami has failed to cover the spread in 8 of its last 9 games against conference opponents. So struggling to cover against conference teams, while Miami is 3-2 against the spread this year.
Yeah.
UNC is 4-1 against the spread. Who are you taking in this one?
We're getting the Rams out, baby. We're getting the Rams out. We're ready to rock. We got the Rams.
Bust it out.
We're coming in. We got North Carolina coming. Tucker was very thrown off when he saw some people game day?
The college game day was there, and I saw people doing that. I was like, what is that?
He said it to me, he's like, what is this? I was like, that's the Ram. Not many people do it, but that's what it is. Now, give me North Carolina. Better quarterback. I trust Drake May to win this game. I think the weapons are going to come in clutch for North Carolina. And like I said, that defensive line is full of 4 and 5 stars that are finally starting to kind of get it. They're starting to click a little bit. I think they can do enough to disrupt this. I think Mario's going to be too much of a coward to ever capitalize on any momentum they have. So North Carolina is always going to be there. Only 3 points at home. Yeah, I'm taking the Tar Heels.
Better QB, better coach.
What else you need?
That's all you need. I'm taking UNC as well. 3 points at home seems light. They're basically saying this is a pick 'em at neutral site, and I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I don't know if North Carolina gets a full 3 for a home field. I don't know. I don't know what Chapel Hill gets. They might be a 2 or a 2.5, but still, it's still close to a pick 'em, which is again surprising.
Very much so. We're on the same page with that one there. So let's move on to the wild card games. This is a good wild card game.
Banger.
This is a banger wild card game. Is the time on this correct, Maddie? I'm looking at this now.
No, it is not correct.
Okay. So number 18, UCLA, travels to number 15, Oregon State. Been a surprising team this year, Oregon State. Surprising to me. I know that a lot of people were kind of high on Oregon State. I wasn't quite buying the DJU hype. But this is number 18, number 15 matchup on Fox in Corvallis.
It's 6. It's at 6. It's another night game.
That's right, because both of our wildcard games are night games as well. So if you've got the second TV, you got the other monitor, got the laptop,
you're at a bar.
You're at a bar. You're gonna want to pull this one up. You gotta pull this one up on your phone if they don't have it up on the bar TVs, because listen, the Pac-12 is playing good football this year.
They are.
And we've talked a lot about the Pac-12 this year, more than maybe I anticipated talking about the Pac-12 this year, and more than we talked about it in the last couple of years we've done the show. So UCLA, a team that has played spoiler, is trying to play spoiler to a lot of teams. They didn't quite play spoiler to the Utes, but Oregon State, a team that, I mean, you look at the standings, they could make some noise too. So it's a very interesting game with these two teams.
Listen, UCLA's defensive performance against Washington State might be the single best performance I have seen all season. And one, not many people could watch the game because it was on the Pac-12 network.
Sad.
2, it single-handedly destroyed any Cam Ward hype that was going on for Washington State because they just had him completely in a blender. And D'Anton Lynn was the safeties coach for Baltimore, hired this year by UCLA, and that defense is playing ball right now. People forget that Utah game, that defense shut down Utah. Not hard to do, but like if they didn't have a true freshman playing quarterback, making a lot of mistakes in that game because Utah's an impossible place to play, they might win that game. They might be undefeated. And we're sitting here and saying, UCLA has the best defense in the Pac-12. They have a potent enough offense with Chip Kelly. They're going to make noise. I think that Utah game is kind of skewing what we think just because of a true freshman quarterback making foreseeable and forgivable mistakes. It's like, I don't know. I think we might be sleeping on this UCLA team a little bit, like overall. I think we probably bought in too much of that Utah game because, again, he's a true freshman.
Yeah.
Like, he's allowed to make some mistakes. He's allowed to.
It's a very interesting matchup when I looked over at the Pac-12 standings because Pac-12 is wild. It's
amazing.
Wild right now. USC's played 4 conference games. No other team has played 3.
Oh, wow.
So they're 4-0. Oregon is 2-0.
Okay, because they got Notre Dame they always put that in the middle. I'm trying to figure out, they must have just all their cupcake. USC must have all their cupcakes in the middle. It's weird. I know they play Notre Dame this week. Hey, spoiler, we're not talking about that game. We've talked enough about those 2 teams.
Yeah. You can watch the game if you want, I guess. But
it's during this game. It's during this game. It's during Miami, North Carolina. Like, who wants to watch, Notre Dame pound the rock 38 million times and a defense not be able to stop it?
That's true. You talk about Caleb Williams. He does make a lot of good off-script throws.
Amazing.
Very Patrick Mahomes-esque when you talk about his arm slots and everything like that. But you make a really good point when you talk about just like him in structure is not as good as Drake May. I know we're not talking about USC. It's inevitable. We have to talk about USC.
It's a ranked game. It's ranked on ranked. It's a team with college football playoff hopes in USC and Notre Dame, off a tough stretch here. They've lost 2 or 3, potentially could have lost all 3.
Yeah.
Looking to play spoiler at home. Like, I fully get it. That's a big rivalry too. So, like, it's worth mentioning, but that's not the game we're talking about anymore. Done with that.
But I'm just so confused why USC's played so many more conference games than anybody else. Like, they've played 4. The next highest team has played 2.
I mean, I know the Notre Dame game factors in, right? Because
they
have to play them, and they must. I don't know how the rest of their schedule shakes out. I mean, it's weird.
It's very odd because I'm looking at it now. They played. Okay, so San Jose State. They started with San Jose State. Then they had Nevada. Then they went Stanford, Arizona State, Colorado, Arizona. Now they have Notre Dame, but then they have Utah, Cal, Washington, Oregon, UCLA.
They seem like the Pac-12 just playing that many conference games all over. They seem like that seems like they're going to have an extra one than everybody else. I guess everyone's just playing 3 games out of conference. I don't know. I haven't paid that much attention, but hey, that's good. That's fun. That's the schedule.
I was going to say,
when's their week off? Because if I'm not mistaken,
right, that's what it must be. Is they must have a week off.
Sure, but I mean, like, that's a stretch. Like, that's coming. They're coming in hot now.
Have they already had their week off? There's no way they'd already have their week off and play 4 conference games.
They might have. I think they did. Anywho,
they did. Yeah.
UCLA, Oregon State. It's gonna be a fun one. I really do. DJU's coming off a good game for him in Oregon State. I think Oregon State wants to pound the rock and just like run this one at UCLA, but UCLA has the defense that can handle it. The Murphy twins and Latu there on the defensive front. Those 3 guys are getting after it so bad right now. This could be a game where you see DJU really turn to a pumpkin if Oregon State's protection can't hold up. Now, Oregon State, if you want a matchup to watch, it's Latu and the Murphy twins versus these Oregon State tackles. Okay, Joshua Gray coming into the season plays left tackle for Oregon State. He was the guy that had a little bit of draft type as a mid-round guy, but across from him, it's a guy that kind of came on strong. It is Talisi Afuaga has been playing right tackle for them, and he has been excellent. He has been like, we're talking a guy that is maybe pushing to be a potential first-round type pick the way he's been playing. He's been that good. So kind of whoever wins that matchup of these UCLA pass rushers versus those offensive tackles, like you could really see Oregon State's offense roll by just pushing these guys around, or you could see UCLA with another performance like last week where they just have, DJU, if he's asked to drop back and just throw the ball around, I think it could get ugly for the Beavs.
Oregon State favored by 3.5 points at home against UCLA. Looking at some of the fun facts from our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook, Oregon State has covered the spread in each of its last 10 games against conference opponents at Riser Stadium. So I don't know if Maddie, if I'm buying the 3.5 there, it's going to be a close one. I think this is another 1-2 point game. When you're talking about the grand scheme of things, I'll make my pick first. I'm going to take UCLA. I was impressed with UCLA, and I think that they've been playing very good. Their defense, as you mentioned, is good. Yeah, it's a good defense. I like it in this game, but that's what I'm going with. I'm going to go with UCLA in this one.
I think I'm with you. I don't think Oregon State, I think they lost a lot of defensive players from last year. Yeah. And like this team was kind of known to be a little bit of a defensive kind of minded team, a rough team and stuff like that. I think against bad competition, I think their defense shows up, but I don't know if they have the kind of defense that's just going to absolutely run Dante Moore and this UCLA offense off the field. Right. And I like what I've seen from this UCLA defense right now. Vets, they pass rushers, some coverage guys, they fly around. I think they make it really tough on DJU in this game. I'm also taking the Bruins. They hurt me when I picked them against Utah, They came back and they squashed out our Cougs. So like I'm feeling like a ride with the Bruins one more time. Give me UCLA in this one. I'm getting the points.
Getting some points for UCLA. Let's move on to the second wildcard game. Also at 6:30, Missouri at number 24 Kentucky. Kentucky favored by 2.5 points. This is going to be a really incredibly close game. I think Missouri was like 26 in the AP poll in the receiving votes, just behind Miami, who I think if Kansas State would have won against Oklahoma State, they probably would have stayed in the top 25.
Maybe.
But
I don't know how Kentucky gets blown out with worse wins than Missouri and remains ranked, but Missouri with a better win loses a much closer game, not against as good of a team, but still a respected ranked team, and they fall out. Yeah. That makes no sense to me.
It didn't make any sense to me when I saw it either. But looking at the SEC East standings, I think this is going to be pretty important for the SEC East standings. Yeah. Now, it's not going to be the winner of the SEC East, right? Like it's going to be probably who's going to be close to like this could be for number 2 in the SEC East.
Yeah, probably.
Which would be a big jump for Missouri. As a Missouri football fan, will be a big jump. Fun fact from Gabe Yarman, who shared this on the Mizzou That's Who podcast: the winner of Kentucky Missouri, whoever has won that game, has always finished higher in the SEC East standings than the other one has.
Okay,
so
I can buy it.
If Missouri beats Kentucky, you're talking about possibly being number 2 in the SEC East, and with a chance to go into Georgia between the hedges. Could play spoiler to Georgia, a Georgia team that hasn't necessarily played all that well this year.
Until they played Kentucky.
They're still the number 1 offense. I don't know if you know that. They're still the number 1 offense in the country when it comes to
check out. I don't know how that works.
Right. Now, I saw that and I was like, that's very odd. But Missouri Kentucky, this is turning into a pretty big rivalry, truthfully. Between these two teams. These two teams do not like each other. This is going to be under the lights in Lexington. This was supposed to be a ranked matchup. Which,
should have been. It should
have been a ranked matchup. But, Maddie, first thoughts on this one as these two teams really do not like each other, like I said.
My first thought was Missouri should be ranked and Kentucky shouldn't, right? Like, that was my first thought. My next thought is, like, I don't want to not give Missouri some time here, but, like, this is the third game in this slate. And then also we mentioned USC Notre Dame's in the slot. Like, it's a game that I know Missouri fans and Kentucky fans will be all over, but probably not a lot of people are going to see this. So it's going to be a little bit quicker to move through this, especially because we talked about Missouri and Kentucky both last week. Yeah. I like this matchup for Missouri. I don't think Kentucky's quite as good as they were looking early on. I think they play, smash mouth football. They want to push you around, but I don't know if they have the horses to do so. I think it was kind of a little bit of the matchups they had. Yep. I really think Missouri's going to be able to stress this coverage unit. I think Missouri, the way Brady Cook's been playing, which has been good. I mean, he had some returns to the Brady Cook that we know last week versus LSU, but it was a game where they had to score points. He's still generally been playing really good. Theo Weiss, Luther Burden, Mookie, these guys are playing great, right? So, like, I think Missouri just has too much firepower for Kentucky. And both these teams, I think, are playing for their season. Like, they can't, I don't think either one can really afford to lose another game in a row here, kind of lose that momentum in the middle of the season. Obviously, they'll still make bowls or whatever. It's just, it'll be hard. You can handle that loss to LSU. You can handle that loss to Georgia, but stacking it up here, good teams don't, lose twice because of one game. I think somebody needs to rebound. I'm kind of leaning Missouri.
It's going to be an interesting game because they love Ray Davis. They loved running balls with Ray Davis. He is very good. Missouri's run defense hasn't necessarily been the best. No. So that could be something to watch there. Defensive line has played a lot better as of late. But I do think that Devin Leary hasn't played probably as well as we anticipated him to play this year.
That shoulder shot.
It does. It looks like it is. So I think that's kind of how Missouri can gain a leg up because their coverage, their secondary is pretty good. I do think that Ennis Rakestraw's not playing in this game. He has a little bit of a groin injury that they're just trying to. And again, this is probably a game that he can maybe afford to sit out just because of the coverage and everything like that. They're going to try to run the ball a lot. But 2.5 points, Maddie. Kentucky getting the 2.5 at home. What are you picking in this one?
Kentucky getting points or are they favored? I thought
they're favored.
Okay.
They're favored at home.
Yeah, give me Missouri. And give me the Tigers. Like I said, I think they have too much firepower. Listen, I still don't love Brady Cook as like a prospect, as in like really putting my season. I said last week, the reason I took LSU was because I trusted Daniels more than Brady Cook. And I think it played out that way. But I trust Cook more than I trust Leary. I trust the weapons Missouri has. I love how Eli's decided to get the ball to Luther Burden. And then when teams have to take him away, they're finding ways to get Theo Weiss shots down the field one-on-one, and he's making them pay. The running game, I don't remember that Missouri's running back's name. I'm sorry.
Cody Schrader and Nate Pete.
Schrader's been fun. Mm-hmm. He makes one cut and then just kind of goes, and I like that he doesn't waste any time. He gets them positive yards when it's available. It's like, I think they just have too much juice. I don't feel like Kentucky can keep up if Missouri even gets halfway rolling in this game. So give me Missouri laying the points. I'm going to take Missouri as well.
That's probably a homer pick, but I think this is a pretty big game. This is a big game for both these teams.
It's a pick 'em. I'm just saying to pick 'em. Missouri might even be favored by a half point or something like that on a neutral field, right?
Yeah,
So I mean, that's not a homer pick at all.
I'm going to take the Tigers. Like how the offense has been playing. If you would have told me, like Maddie, in August that Mizzou's offense would be the talking point that we were talking about, I would have called you. I would have said you're crazy.
My mind is blown at Brady Cook. I mean, it really is.
Yeah,
like he's been so much better this year. Like they teased you with this QB competition, and I'm like, yes, please get anyone else back. It's tough that Brady Cook was terrible last year. I'm sorry. No. I don't know how people watched that and even came in with any promise. Right. Like, we don't see what happens at practice. We don't see what Eli sees, and Correct. He clearly has made the right choice to ride with him and get him out there on the field. He's playing great. Like I said, we saw a little bit of the old Brady Cook last week for LSU, so you can't have that stack up. You can't have that continue. Come out and get him rolling again. Come out, beat Kentucky like you should, and I think you feel great as a Missouri fan. All
right, let's get to our last game. We got the Sickos game of the week.
This might be one of the sickest ones we've ever done.
It might be, but this is a Power 5 Sickos game. This is
kinda.
Power 5 is generous. Sickos game of the week. This is at the 2:30, 3:30 time slot. Whatever your time zone you're watching in. But Wake Forest travels to is that Hattiesburg? Is that Virginia Tech?
Blacksburg,
Virginia, to take on Virginia Tech.
One of the best walkout songs.
Yes.
And just saying, man, they get that going, they get rolling.
This is on the ACC network. This is part of the reason why it's a Sickos game. Probably not going to be able to watch it.
No, you can find the ACC network. That one's findable.
Is that is ESPN do that one?
I think so. It's very findable. So that's why I felt okay putting it on. We try not to put conference network games on here too much because we know that's difficult for people to find. I feel like the ACC and SEC network both are pretty easy to find, honestly.
Yeah, Missouri and Kentucky's on the SEC network. I don't know if I mentioned that. That's where that one is. It's pretty accessible. ACC network for this one as well. As I mentioned, Virginia Tech. I don't know actually if I mentioned this at all. Favored by a point at home.
I don't know how. I don't. Listen, if you haven't watched Virginia Tech for a snap this year, I don't blame you. First of all, tragedy last year. We feel bad about that. This football team gets a lot of credit for battling through that, to start this year. But now we're into football. I'm not taking away from that, but we're talking about the football now and week 7 of college football. They beat Old Dominion, okay? And they did beat Pitt. But and this podcast is very quick to tell you. Pitts are frauds.
Pitt's bad.
They're terrible. They're extra fraudulent this year. So that's all they've done. I don't know. When you watch Virginia Tech, it doesn't feel like they have a purpose. It doesn't feel like they have a direction. But Wake's been struggling this year. Wake definitely misses Sam Hartman. They haven't quite got it going out there. So I think it's an interesting game. Dave Clawson, I really like Wake Forest coach, but the slow mesh, maybe Sam Hartman did a little bit more for it. The last thing I have on this game, once again, Wake Forest has a wide receiver that matters. A.T. Perry. They've had a lot of guys coming through. This year, it's Jamal Banks. He's been there for a couple years. He's going to be a bigger bodied contested catch guy. It's going to win vertically. You're going to wonder if he has the speed for the NFL, but he's going to keep dominating in college right now. He's 6'4", 210 pounds. Big guy. Just got to keep your eye on if you want to watch this game on the ACC network and, stomp your toes at the same time.
A shout out to you for wanting to watch this game on the ACC network. If you do want to watch this game. But appreciate that. Wake Forest has covered the spread in 6 of its last 7 games in October. There's their +1 dog going on the road to Blacksburg. This game is just I was looking at Virginia Tech's schedule and just being you mentioned the Old Dominion win. Old Dominion,
not a bad team this year.
Good FCS team. They lose to Purdue, not a good Big Ten team. Lose to Rutgers, not a good Big Ten team. Lose to Marshall.
Why are they playing so many Big Ten teams?
I don't know. I started thinking, wow, are they in the Big Ten? No. Marshall, losing to Marshall, beating Pitt, which they have a football coach that hates football, so it makes sense. And then they kept it close, but it's 17-39 against Florida State.
And if I remember peeking in on that game, and it was the same thing. It was just kind of Florida State's doing whatever they want. Virginia Tech can't do anything, but somehow it's not a blowout. It's one of those games that Florida State was just we're here. We showed up. I'm taking the Demon Deacons. I don't know. It's a Sickos game. We just fire these off the hip, and Dave Clawson's a better coach.
Yeah.
I don't know who's a better quarterback, but I do think that Jamal Banks is the best player in this game. So give me the Deeks.
I'll ride with you. They had a 5-point loss to Clemson. Was that last weekend? The Deeks did, yeah. So they hung in there with Clemson. I'll take Wake Forest in this game.
Well coached team. That's all I got.
Yeah. they kind of got handed to them by Georgia Tech there. Looking back at that,
So Georgia Tech's all over the place, man. You get waxed by Bowling Green, but then you beat Miami. You take it to Wake Forest, but like that Bowling Green game is just staring at me, and like I don't know what to do with them. Right?
Similar opponents. I'm looking at Wake Forest schedule right now. They beat Old Dominion, but only by 3.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. So you never know.
Yeah, no, okay. You mentioned Georgia Tech, so Georgia Tech.
Let's talk sports.
They play a real close game against Louisville, but
Yep.
lose. That's good.
Mhm.
They blow out SC State, which is like a fine like FCS team, right? That's a good thing. They blow them out. Then they get destroyed by Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Then they come out and destroy Wake. Then get beat by Bowling Green, and then beat Miami. What is Georgia Tech doing?
They're the most confused. They stopped running the triple option and didn't know what to do. That's what happened. They're like, wait, we're not running. This is football now.
The universe isn't ready. They don't know where to place Georgia Tech. They don't know what's happening right now. It's like they play Boston. They got a week off and they play Boston College.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they lose that game because Boston College, and then they come back and beat UNC.
I was gonna say, just go ahead and pencil in Georgia Tech winning against UNC because
so
they're
going to lose to Boston College, arguably the worst FBS team right now, and then they're going to come back and beat UNC, who'll be ranked in the top 10 after beating Miami.
Do you know there were some Boston College fans that thought they were gonna make a bowl this year?
No, they didn't.
I saw that
They're fake.
I saw that on the Twitter. And
AI.
I was like, what are we doing? That team sucks. Anyway, Maddie, final thoughts on the slate on this week, on anything that you want to talk about, I guess.
Well, you're going to be locked in from mid after later afternoon, the 2 o'clock slate through the end of the night. You're going to be locked in. A lot of good football is happening. I think we're going to get a lot of movement in the top 10. Right? We got some Pac-12 battles. You're getting into the meat of conference play. So like now's when you maybe have some teams slip up or play close games, right? And so maybe a Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, maybe somebody slips a little bit. Like you start to get movement now. So I think we'll get big or top 10 movement starting this week. You'll get a better picture of stuff. And like we're ramping up. I mean, we're locked in on TV from afternoon on.
Yeah. Could be some upsets when you start to look at the top about 6. Georgia plays Vandy, should handle it. Michigan plays Indiana, should handle. Ohio State plays Purdue. Florida State, Syracuse, Oklahoma plays UCF, Penn State plays UMass. All games we anticipate them to win.
UMass,
but shout out UMass. But again, could have some upsets. Right. Never know with college football. But we appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end with us here on the Always Draft Season channel. Make sure to be a friend, tell a friend about this channel. We're going to be putting a bunch of draft content out there for you guys. When it gets closer to the season, maybe do a little bit more on bye week. If the Chiefs bye week action coming up here in a few weeks, we might have some more stuff for you there too. So appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end of the video. Listen after the fact. We always do appreciate that. So we got you set here. For Maddie Lane, I'm Tucker Franklin. We will catch you guys next week.
Go Buffs tonight versus Stanford.
Hacks.